Welcome to the Story 516 podcast, where we sit down with Christians from across denominations and talk about how God is at work in the world today and inspire you to see God at work in your own life in new ways. Welcome back to the Story 516 podcast. I'm your host, Zach, and joining me this week is a friend of mine, another writer friend of mine who I met through the Author Conservatory, Esther Pipkin. We met we were both students, and I think we kind of got to know each other a little better through things like reading groups and stuff like that online. Met in person at two different conferences, and have both kind of moved into the alumni group of students from the conservatory together. So, Esther, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Zach.
Yeah, so I feel like the first place we met in person was a writers conference. I think it was Realm Makers in 2023, if I'm remembering my past correctly.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. I feel like that was the first time we, like, really actually talked. Like, I think we'd seen each other around, but I don't think we'd really, like, talked a bunch until then, so
Yeah. Yeah, and we had some, I mean, I was going to say similar interests, but that's kind of silly since we were all writers at a writing
Right.
conference. So yes, we had similar interests, but I think even some
Mhm.
things outside of writing,
Yes,
like
yeah.
gaming, and uh, ended up in a few, I think, reading groups together.
Mhm,
So even similar, like within the world of books, similar interests in like terms of genre
mhm.
and stuff like that. So I would love it if you could share kind of a brief bio about yourself for our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, as Zach said, I'm an author, so I write primarily young adult fantasy. So, I kind of write a lot of fantasy, but fantasy, often with, like, a romance spin to it, like, romantasy is kind of, like, a common term for it. That's more of, like, where I lean into, and kind of just my heart behind that is, like, I like to, like, share my heart in all of my stories, and some of that is just sharing themes of, like, hope and home for people who have been through some difficult things. Because I definitely, have that in all of my books because 'cause I've been through just different things. So having that for, like, people and especially, like, teenagers who've always felt like an outsider or have found, like, refuge in books, because I definitely always felt like I never fit in a lot of ways. So that's where a lot of my heart comes from in writing my books. So, yes, and I'm also, an author conservatory graduate. So I graduated, in June of 2024. And I also work as a creative writing instructor for Kids Write Novels, where I teach second through fifth graders how to love stories, which is just a really awesome job. And I really enjoy it. That's kind of the, the short version.
Nice.
But yeah.
Nice. I guess we both have, for our audience, I do work currently as a part-time library assistant in a middle school. So I guess we both have younger people who we're interacting with on a daily basis in those areas. You more writing, me kind of recommending books, I guess, or more along the lines of recommending the latest graphic novel because that's what the kids like reading.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, no, I love talking about just like books with all of my kids, and they definitely like. There's a lot of them who do definitely like love like comic books or graphic novels. So that's definitely a common theme.
Nice. So, when kind of looking at your own writing, what drew you to kind of writing the more romance or romantasy side of things?
Well, I've always been like a hopeless romantic. Like I always loved like the princess movies and all of that. That was always like a really big thing that I enjoyed reading when I was a kid. And then, like, more recently, like, I've, like, really found a passion for writing romance, but also, like, writing romance in a healthy way, because, like, I've been married just over a year now, so I've seen that, like, healthy relationship with, dating and marrying my own partner. So that's been awesome getting to see that firsthand, and also, there's also a lot of books out there that have a lot of romance that's, like, either way too graphic or just is not. portrayed in a healthy way. So that's a really passion for me to have to be able to portray romance in a healthy way. So, yeah, that's a really, really big thing for me.
And then, like, the kind of the other thing that stuck out to me about kind of where you, found a lot of, like, or kind of where you aim for your audience is kind of it sounded more like the outsider, someone who doesn't feel like they quite fit in.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So, I was homeschooled as a kid. So I didn't have a lot of friends growing up. And so like, whenever I was around other kids or things like that, I never felt like I quite fit in. So, that was, a struggle for me for many years. I found a lot of I would read so many books, and that was where I found a lot of, like, my friendship in a way. Is like had so many imaginary friends, and most of them were, like, fictional characters that I read about. So that was really important to me as a kid. So that is where a lot of my heart comes from because I understand what it's like to be a kid who doesn't quite fit in, who is a little weird because they're nerdy at like Lord of the Rings or whatever. So I felt that a lot, and I never another thing is, like, a lot of my characters, I realized, just through my writing is, like, I kept seeing this common theme in all of my stories, and I was like, "Wow, that's pretty crazy." So that's one way I've seen, like, God just work through me and my stories is he's been working a theme in my stories as well as in my own life. So that's been really cool to see, and one of those things is just writing about home in my stories a lot. I write about characters who feel kind of disconnected from their home and either like they don't know where they belong and they're searching for either that found family or for that home. So that is something I really write about because I've felt that in life. So those are just a couple of common themes I write about in a lot of my books.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love the focus and kind of how you can, like, condense a lot of that into the word home.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you think about how faith intersects with your writing, does the word home take on a different meaning for you or kind of different significance?
Hmm, that's a good question. In a way, I think yes. Because I really think, like, we as humans, we long for home. We long for that place of comfort, that place of safety, and for a lot of us, like, we want that place on earth, and some of us are never gonna find that, until we get to heaven. So that's something I really feel like that's a desire God's put in us. We are searching for home, and that home, like, ultimately is heaven. So that is one thing, like, my books are not explicitly Christian, like, they're fantasy, I don't directly talk about that in my books, but it's definitely something, like, a lot of my characters have this longing for something that, they may not have yet, or a home that they don't have yet, which I think a lot of us can relate to.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, those are great thoughts. It got me thinking about, C.S. Lewis, and even though he was much more, I think, writing for, Christians in much of his work, he has this really great quote that I felt like connects with the idea of, like, longing for home, and it's a really long quote, and I'm trying to figure out where I should start, but, like, the main part that I think people will recognize, he's talking through all these different things about how I think kind of how we're trying to find beauty and where beauty is located. And then he says, "For these things are not the thing itself. They're only the scent of a flower we have not found, the echo of a tune we have not heard, news from a country we have never yet visited." And I believe that's from his book, The Weight of Glory. But that quote always struck me as kind of there's this longing for another place, longing for, like, kind of like you say, home. It's I think it's really that simple. We're all longing for a place to belong, a place to lay our head at night that's safe, that's fulfilling. And I love it that as Christians, we can approach kind of giving a glimpse or a hint of that through different ways, through, in Lewis's case, writing directly for Christians. But in a friend of Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, his Lord of the Rings is filled with, I would say, spiritual themes and Christian truths, but it's not written directly for Christians. It's written for kind of people who like fantasy. So I see kind of your writing probably, you can probably relate a little more to like the Tolkien than the Lewis in that regard, but both you still find those themes of home. Kind of continuing on that topic, are there certain stories that have been really impactful for you, fictional stories that you've read that you've really that have like that theme of home has really resonated with you?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Lord of the Rings was definitely a really, pivotal story for me as a kid. And I think one of my favorite, like, fantasy worlds is the Shire because it has that just picturesque, like, hobbit village that just, like, it feels like home. You like, in the movies, like, that's, like, some of my favorite scenes because like, it's beautiful, it's cozy, it's homey, and it just feels like home to me. So that's definitely, really those are really important to books to me as a kid. And another let me see, there's a couple other books, I'm sure. One of those is actually not it's actually not a book, but, Tangled was actually one of my favorites
Yeah.
as a kid. It was, 'cause I really related to Rapunzel, even though she was very different from me, like, she's very outgoing, I'm very much an introvert. Like, her longing for, wanting to see those lights and then eventually, like, realizing that she needed to find home. And she found it, like, not only in the physical place, but also she found it in people as well, which is a really another really big thing I'm passionate about. So, those are probably 2 of my top favorites with kind of that theme in it.
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of finding that home in people, looking at your own life, are there certain ways that you would or certain areas you would point to where God has kind of brought you to that sense of home and community with people?
Hmm, yeah, absolutely. So when I was 15, my family moved from, like, my childhood home halfway across the country, and I knew no one. So that was a really hard time for me, and in that time, I found a church camp that really helped shape my life in a lot of ways. I had a couple of really good mentors that, just really helped me, but also I found, like, a really good community there in that church camp. So that was just a really, really big thing for me as well, when I was, like, really didn't have a lot of friends, and that was just good to have that that community because, again, like, it was a very, like, homey atmosphere as well. Because like,
Yeah.
it was tucked away in the middle of nowhere. When I was a camper, it would be, like, a 1 week, and, like, you would, like, take away all the phones, all everything,
Oh
and it would just
boy.
be, like Yep. So, like, we would just be there with each other, and you're forced to get to know people, and you were forced to read the Bible with each other. We would, like, sing every day, and that was, like, another place that really just led me to find, like, this random home in the middle of nowhere. Like, it was very, very secluded. We would just be out in nature every day. We would be reading and learning about God, and so that was one place that really was a home for me.
I mean, I've never moved across country, but I remember moving as a kid just within probably just like 2 miles away in the same city. And I was like, "This is terrible." So I can't imagine as a kid kinda
Mhm.
leaving everything that you've known and kind of going to somewhere new. But that's great that you can find a place like camp. I've talked to, other people on this podcast who, have worked at a Bible camp and kind of just talk through the amazing impact that, like, Bible camp and camps can have in general. So I was also curious, kind of as someone who has felt like an outsider, like been looking for that home, found different senses of homes throughout your life. If someone's listening and they kind of feel homeless in that sense, that they're looking for a place to belong, is there a piece of advice that you would give to someone like that?
Mm, that's a great question. Yeah, I've definitely, I can relate to that a lot for sure. It's like I think in the past 5 years, I moved, like, 6 times or something like that, so
Oh boy.
I've just been, I've been misplaced a lot in my life, so that feeling, it's hard, for sure. I mean, the biggest thing is, always prayer is just my biggest, rock. I would say just, a lot of prayer, a lot of, calling out to God, and also not being afraid to ask God, "Hey, I'm in a really tough spot, I feel really lonely," and things like that, and just asking God to be like, "Hey, help me through this, and maybe place this person in my life or place this group in my life or something that will really help me because it's okay to just feel in those moments and be like, hey, this isn't fun, but I'm gonna ask God to help me through it. And also just not being afraid to put yourself out there, not being afraid to care about people, even though you've been torn away from people in the past. I know right now I found, a really good church where I live, and it it's been really awesome, and but I also know what it's like to kind of feel like, "Oh, I've just been placed into this new state or this new place or whatever, and I have to go church searching again." That can be really hard,
Yeah.
but when you do put yourself out there, when you do take the time to really find that church, find that social group or whatever it is, it's worth it, and you will find it eventually. That's something I've had to learn too is, know that you may be in the season of loneliness, you may be in the season of where everything is being uprooted, but know that it's not gonna last forever either, and that's okay. And it may be hard now, but eventually you will find the people. 'Cause I know that's one thing for me is, for a long time, I didn't have a lot of friends, and eventually, those friends did come. I just had to wait for them in some cases. So, hopefully that's coherent. That was a lot of rambly thoughts, but
It's hard to give advice like that too, because every person's on a different journey. So I know that can be a little difficult, but I think that's great kind of because I feel like you walked through a journey in your answer. I think
mm,
that's very
mhm.
relatable for people. Because I love the idea of going to God and kind of persisting with that request of help me find my people, find a home. Be also being okay with your feelings, whatever you're feeling of like loneliness or longing. Because I think we get emotions for specific reasons. I think some of that longing for home isn't going to be fulfilled until the next life. And that's okay. But a lot of those desires and things will help prompt us to pursue God, pursue godly friendships and relationships, and seek out these avenues where we can find different pockets of home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Esther, for joining us today. As a writer, I know you have email lists, social media. You just had a short story that was published in an anthology. Where can people find you, find all that information online if they want to check it out?
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of the one place where all of that is gathered is my website, estherpipkin.com, which is Pipkin. So yeah, you could find my book on there. Yeah, I was recently published, Zach said, in an anthology called Stories of Adventure and Imagination. Um, so that's really exciting for me. And you can also find me on Instagram. I'm on there quite a bit, so you can just search Esther Pipkin author to find me there as well. But yeah, would love to connect with people. I love seeing new people, meeting new friends. So yeah,
Yeah, and I encourage our audience to follow you on social media, join any email lists, stay up to date with yourself and all the writers I've had on the show recently, because we all need good books in our life. And these friends of mine, um, we're all on this kind of journey together. We've all found kind of a home together as fellow authors pursuing the dream of being published. So I'm excited to see as each of us gets our books and stories out there in the world, and I'm excited that the audience can join in on that adventure with us.
Thank you for joining us. You can support the show by going to our Patreon page at patreon.com/story516. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We look forward to seeing you next time.